y'all. Welcome to Sister Brunch.
Thanks for being here again.
I'm Anya Adams.
And I'm Fanshen Cox. We have an amazing guest today. I am so excited that she's here with us. But the whole reason we get together is to have Black women, the sisters, talk about what it's like to work in entertainment. And
who better to do it with than Kelly Edwards?
Pretty much I would say that.
Because she's done a ton of things.
Yeah, what has she done? Like, you want to get into it already?
In this bio here, it says she's worn many hats.
I like that. How
she's
many
a many hat
She's
wearer.
not wearing a hat today.
And I have very big hair, so that you imagine
do.
how difficult it is.
We all look cute with our headsets on.
It's true, yes.
But now the hat she's wearing is SVP of Talent Development for WarnerMedia Entertainment. And that covers HBO, Turner, and Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And you oversee emerging talent programs for series, films, and miniseries. Is that right?
As an example is HBO Access, which is this incredible program that is churning out some beautiful, beautiful short films that have gone to festivals. She was also a key corporate diversity executive at Comcast NBCUniversal for 5 years. And she oversaw 20 divisions. 20.
Just a couple.
And just a little bit. She launched employee resource groups, introduced diverse creative talent to NBC, USA, Sci-Fi, Bravo, and Telemundo. Her career has also spanned TV and film. She produced the movie of the week, A Christmas Detour for Hallmark, the 1-hour series Sex, Love, and Secrets for UPN, and, I love this part. This excites me. Girlfriends. This is like so Sister Brunch. She helped develop the series Girlfriends, The Parkers, Malcolm in the Middle, Clueless, and The Wild Thornberrys.
Which, incidentally, Malcolm in the Middle was the first show I ever worked in the industry as a DGA trainee.
I love it.
So thank you for that.
That's right. I know. Because
That's
of Kelly.
exciting.
All because of Kelly.
Yes.
So Kelly is a connector. Like Kelly is so about... Sometimes I even say she's a little too much about helping others because this woman needs a publicist. This woman needs
You've
like
been trying
5.
to get me to do that for a
It's
while
true.
now.
5 assistants like this. So I want to quickly talk about Color Entertainment, which Kelly co-created, co-founded.
When do I get to jump in?
We're
Never.
gonna get it. But we just love you. Okay. I
get
love
5
Kelly
minutes.
so much. I wore makeup today. That's how much I know. Oh my gosh, that's the only reason. Okay. Anyway, so Color Entertainment is this amazing networking group where you assign mentors to kind of emerging people, executives, which is one of a kind. Like
it does. We do quite a few things. We've been going for 19 years. Next year will be our 20th year.
Congratulations.
I know, it's exciting. When you look back and you go, oh wow, that was it was
20
just.
years
It
ago.
feels like the time has flown by.
Yeah.
In so many ways, but it's a networking group for creative executives of color. We span the TV, film, and digital groups, out here in Hollywood. And the original idea was that we were usually feeling, there were a handful of us creative executives, and we were pretty much the only person of color at our company or on our floor, and we were feeling very isolated. Mm-hmm. And we thought, well, why don't we get in a room? All of us could fit in a room, so we should get in a room. And our first dinner we had was, I think it was 34 executives. That was total. We could find
34.
Right. And we had a dinner at Off Vine. And then what we started to do was, on a regular basis, we started to have potluck dinners. Essentially, it was sort of, getting together with a group of people, whoever could make it. And then whoever had an expense account would expense somebody who didn't have an expense account.
Love it. Yes.
We gathered together at Manhattan Wonton, which no longer exists anymore, but it was in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
And we just started to network, and we realized that by working together, we would stay working longer.
Yes.
We had people who could advocate for us. We had a system of sharing job openings. We would find that there was a lot of support that we could give each other, just in navigating the whole culture of Hollywood. And that turned into, I think 8 years in, we ended up starting to have conversations with network presidents. So we would invite a network president, and Jeff Zucker was our very first at NBC.
That's really fantastic.
And the ulterior motive with that was to say, look, we're going to give you 50 executives at all levels in entertainment for you to come and meet, so that you could no longer say, well, we looked and we couldn't find it.
Yes.
So we started to do that, and then as we've grown, we entered into working with more of our assistants, and now we have a mentoring program which has been going on, I think, for 4 or 5 years now, And it's been pretty amazing to bring up that next generation. They are a very robust group.
Absolutely.
And they do their own events during the year as well. And then we do a lot of other panels and, networking events. So we do a ton of things during the year. And we have a board now. We are just now 501c3, and we're hoping to launch a leadership program.
This is a one of a kind. There are lots of programs for writers, lots of diversity programs, but to really think about the executives where these decisions get made, right? You've got mentors connecting, and they get to see people that look like them, right? The assistants see people that look like them actually doing the job.
And
I just love it.
The great thing about having you here today is because that's kind of what this podcast is about, pulling back this veil of what are all the jobs behind the scenes. And this is something that people don't talk about a lot. They talk about directors, they talk about DPs, they talk about actors, but the executives that are in charge of, taking these ideas and creating them, helping create them, that's a huge job.
I think we forget in this industry, we forget that that there are a lot of things. We have institutional knowledge that we just forget to disseminate. We need to lift that veil. We need to make sure that we're not flying blind, that we all have access to the right information that you get when you grow up in entertainment. If you grow up in an entertainment family, you know what
and of course
AD does,
we don't, right?
DP
This is
does.
part of the thing is that we don't have a lot of access to, to family members or otherwise. So actually, let's take it back to how you grew up and how you ended up deciding, right? I'm kind of like talking about what happens if you don't necessarily have that access, but you were here at least. So I think that kind of makes a big difference. A lot of our guests grew up elsewhere, but what did that mean for you, and how did you end up doing what you do?
Well, and both of my parents, my mother and my stepfather and my previous stepfather, were all in the dental business. So I always say, if you want to know, what a malocclusion looks like, I can help identify your dental issues really quickly.
I quickly. Keep my mouth closed through the rest of this. I'm like, oh God.
I feel like I know way too much about dentistry. So
so all to say, your family was not in the industry.
They were not in the industry.
Did not inherit any knowledge.
But my mother and I lived in this tiny little apartment off of Bedford Drive, and I went to Beverly High. But I went to dance class down Pico, and I had to take a bus down Pico, and every day I would go by 20th Century Fox, or I guess it was 20th Century at that time.
Okay.
So I would go by Fox, and I would look up and I'd go, I really want to work there. But I knew very, very early on, I'm going to say as early as 13, that I wanted to work behind the scenes. I did not want to be in front of the camera. I felt very comfortable about having that kind of spotlight on me. My mother had a very close friend who worked at 20th at one point, and I kept getting posters and at the time LPs. I had Grease. Like, there were all these really great things that sort of the perks of the job. And I just knew I really wanted to be in entertainment. And every afternoon after school, I was watching the ABC 3:30 movie and watching Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. And I just had this whole history of desperately wanting to, be a dancer. But musicals were no longer a thing anymore. Yeah. So that was not going to be an option. Unfortunately, I had to find something else to do. So I give up dancing, and little do I know that the year after, I think it was the year after I got into school, that's when MTV came along. And I was like, I could have been an MTV dancer.
Yes.
But
in Living Color.
I would have been a fly girl for sure.
Yes.
But so I get into college, and I ended up in a theater, on the theater track, but loving the written word. And so I was going to be an English minor. And when I got out of school, I knew that I wanted to be in the business. And as every single job I've ever had in the entire history of my career, my first job out of school was a hookup from a friend.
Yeah.
So network is important.
Network is everything. So I ended up coming out, and a friend of mine who was working for Dolores Robinson at the time, she was between assistants. She needed someone for a month. And he said, he was working for her. He was waiting for the permanent assistant to come in. He said, I can't do this month. Can you come in? And so I worked for her for about a month. And across the courtyard from Dolores's office was a place called the Casting Company, run by Jane Jenkins and Janet Hershenson, they were casting some of the biggest movies at the time. All of John Hughes' movies were cast by them. They were doing Stand By Me at the time,
Such a good
Willow,
movie.
which was Ron Howard's first movie.
Yes.
And so I had this fantastic entree into the business. And I thought casting was going to be my thing because I thought, oh, I'm really good with...
Wait, can I just stop you? So you were assisting, and then you just across the street across the way was this casting company, and you wandered over there and started working there?
I wandered over there, and I said, are you looking for anybody? And they happened to be looking for a receptionist.
Okay.
Amazing.
It was a tiny little office. It was the 2 casting directors. There was a woman named Jill who was assisting Janet and Jane at the time. Janet's husband, Michael, was there, and me. Again, as you know, the connection process sort of continued. I was working there for a while, realized that I didn't want to be a casting person, and I realized that because I was looking for who makes the decisions.
Yeah.
And you realize that casting people don't make the decisions.
Right.
I had a great time working there, though. They were amazing people. But Denise happened to be friends with a guy named Jerry Perzigian. So Jerry Perzigian had just come off of running the Jeffersons with his partner Don Siegel at the time, and they were looking for an assistant.
Yes.
And so I went to work for Siegel and Perzigian, and had a great time. Again, I was really felt as though I was finding the thing that I really wanted to do, which was to be a writer. And so I went to work for them as a writer's assistant. I was probably there for about a couple years. And they had a show on the air on CBS, and I got to see the whole production process.
That's great.
And we were in development with some amazing talent at the time.
Wow.
And we did that for a few years.
And can we just mention, Kelly, that obviously you were working really well at these jobs? Because I think this is something that you try to impart on the folks that you interview for Access, or that you kind of help nurture, is that once you get these jobs, if you want to continue and have this kind of quote unquote luck or these connections, it's because when you get there, you work your tail off.
Absolutely.
So that then they, I mean, I feel like we can't say that enough, is that if you get that opportunity,
you have to be the best you possibly
don't take it for granted.
Right.
And learn as much as you possibly can.
Like humility is important, right? That you don't walk in saying, I already know this, but you're open to learning everything. Yeah.
And raise your hand every single time someone says they need something, or try to anticipate what they might need.
Yeah.
So long story short, I was there. I sort of batted around between working in production and in development on the TV side to the film side, and back and forth. After a while, I ended up working as a story editor for Garry Marshall, and I worked for him for about 2 years.
We're all just over here like fainting over all
great.
the folks.
Just
like,
Garry Marshall.
What he
was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
So I worked there, but then when the deal came up, and he decided he wanted to really just be a director for hire at that point, I ended up realizing that I wanted to go back to television because of the pace. The pace was just a little bit better for me. I liked moving quickly and having a lot of projects on my plate. And so I interviewed for a job at Fox. At the time, they called it FBC, and this is back in the old days. And I interviewed for what was called the minority manager position. So not a lot of people know this, but I was a diversity hire.
What?
Yes.
Wait,
Minority
Kelly, right, and it was
manager?
called
right.
minority.
That's right.
Wait,
That's like,
meaning you were hired in order to do diversity before it was called diversity.
No.
So, okay.
You were hired
I was
because you were
as the
diverse.
minority. They
Yeah.
were like, she's the
That's right.
Hey, you are listening to Sister Brunch with Anya Adams and me, Fanshen Cox. We will be right back. Join our community on Twitter at Sister Brunch and also on Instagram at Sister Brunch Podcast.
All right, hey y'all, we're back. I'm Anya Adams.
And I'm Fanshen Cox.
Kelly Edwards, part 2. It's going to be great. Can I just ask you a quick question? Just on your way up, you were in a multitude of jobs. When you were in those jobs, did you feel like you had a goal to get to this next job, or were you just in that job kind of absorbing and then things came up to you?
No, I wanted more. And I think at the time, you have to remember the whole industry was in a different place than it is now.
Yeah.
Now you can get into a job and you can be in that job for years.
Yeah.
Right.
Back then, if you didn't move every 2 years, you were considered not hot. You were not. You had to move every 2 years.
Really?
So executives would move back and forth. You know, it was a big shuffle always happening.
Another interesting thing I'm thinking about that period was, and you know, you've said like then you were hired as the minority manager. You must have been really alone. Like, were you?
Oh yeah.
You were the only one all the time,
okay,
right?
So when I got the job, the first thing that one of my previous bosses, Steve Tao, who's now over at the CW, amazing man. So Steve Tao, who I'd worked with at Disney Touchstone years before, he calls me up and he says, "All right, I need you to do one thing for me when you get this job. Go down to the second floor." I was on the third floor. Go down to the second floor, and meet a woman named Rose Catherine Pinckney. And I met her. She was the first person I met when I got the job. She's one of my closest friends.
Yes.
Wow.
She was my lifeline.
Okay.
Because, again, I was on a floor where I was the only one.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me fast forward
Yes.
through a lot of this and just sort of say that I was really fortunate to be at Fox at a time when diversity was a very, very important part of the process. And I was usually the person in the casting rooms raising my hand and saying, "Can't we make this more diverse?"
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I was a loudmouth, and I did not realize that, you know, then in a few years there'd be a way for me to make money off of being a loudmouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was constantly having those conversations, and when I went to run comedy for UPN, I made it very clear that I was never going to put something on the air where the pitch started off, "This takes place in the ghetto." Like, I had to make a decision that we were going to see other shades of life, middle class life and upper class life. And that's why Girlfriends looks the way that it does, because I think that there was a definite conversation about, let's see women who are actually achieving, who are doing well.
Right.
And let's see what that looks like.
Yeah.
How did you draw that line between, you know, being a loudmouth because you had to be, because you were like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this, but where did you stop so that you didn't get fired?
I think sometimes it's about meeting other people where they are.
Oh, girl. Okay.
You know, you can't necessarily run up onto them like a bull in a china shop as much as you want to, because we are so much farther out than they are sometimes. And sometimes you have to start the conversation in a different place and realize that they take a little bit more time to get there.
And their changes aren't like huge paradigm shifting changes every time. It's like these small incremental changes that start to happen.
Right.
It's hard. And then there are times when I do get exhausted, and there are times that I do get frustrated, and there are times that are incredibly demoralizing. But then there are some amazing wins that you get every now and again, where you, from my job, I get to see someone get staffed or see someone get an episode, and it's incredibly rejuvenating. And I also take time to be with other people who look like me, and I find that there's a lot of healing that goes on with that. There's just something where you get to relax for a second and not have to worry about sometimes how you say something, and not take care of someone else's feelings all the time, and they just get you, and that just revives me, you know. So I think sometimes you have to find your little happy place. I made a choice to put boundaries around my existence, to say, I can't change other people. I can't change their negative energy. I can't change how they act. But I can change how I react to that, and I can change how I accept and or don't accept that. I like to tell my kids, you know, don't pick up other people's trash. You know, leave that stuff where it is. Walk away from it. That's their issue. Sometimes they're having a bad day. Sometimes that's just who they are. And if you can find a workaround and go to other people to get the information that you need, which is what I do a lot. I had to find in every job a way to get what I needed for myself, and sometimes sidestep some of the difficult people who come at you all the time with just their fears and their negativity and their bad energy. And
one of our other interviewees, Katie, was talking to us about emotional intelligence.
Kadi,
sorry. How much do you feel like that plays into what you do and, you know, connecting with people? And how do you build that?
When you come into a room and you're known as the diversity girl, you come in already with people's backs are up already. So you have to find a way of diffusing that. You have to find a way of giving them what they need in bite-sized chunks. Because here's the thing. Everyone is overworked. Everyone, if you're a creative executive, you have a meeting every hour on the hour. Your whole day, there's virtually no time for you to even read the scripts that you're supposed to read and watch the cuts and, watch the new talent, the videos from the new talent. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And having been on that side, I realized that. And so I say, look, I can't give them a laundry list of people, even though there might be 20 people who are perfectly capable of doing this job. I'm going to give them 2. I'm going to give them 3. I'm going to try to cut it down so that I'm a value add to them, so that they see me coming and they go, oh, here's a solution, not here's another problem.
Oh, that's good, Kelly.
That's what I try to do.
I learned so much.
And then you try to really connect on a personal basis and take them to lunch and get to know them and, try to figure out what are the common pieces of your background that you can really build a relationship upon. It's not easy.
Yeah. Speaking of the lunches, because this isn't, I know lots of people kind of want to know how, this is tough because you go speak on a panel and you're going to get bombarded and people are like, she said she takes people to lunch. You're going to take me. So one, how do you navigate that? And then also something else that I appreciate you is you are definitely a tough love person in the sense of being very, very honest. She has hurt my feelings for plays that I've taken her to. And she was like, you can never suggest another play. So how do you do it so well that you are both really honest with people about how to improve and but it's tough. And also loving so that they don't feel completely rejected or that they, that they're never going to be able to work again. Like, how do you walk that line?
I've been told I'm scary. This new class, of writers that we're working with now told me I was scary.
What?
And I thought that's so interesting because I never thought of myself as scary.
Yeah.
But it's because you tell the truth.
You do, exactly.
That's the scary thing.
That can be scary.
Yeah, I know. I also do recognize that sometimes my approach can be a little, I can be a little much, I think. I'm always on turbo. I'm always on high.
Well, no, tell us about that. What does that mean? Like, what does that look like? You're just high energy?
I think so. I mean, I think that I did go through the Sundance program.
Yes,
but while I was in the Sundance program, I'm still getting my MFA from Emerson.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
In screenwriting while I'm doing my job. Yes. And so people usually go, well, how do you do that? And well, when everybody else is going to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, I'm on my computer. I've skipped the gym, but I'm working constantly, and I feel like that's my resting speed.
Hey, y'all, you're listening to Sister Brunch with Anya Adams and Fanshen Cox. Join our community. We're on Twitter at Sister Brunch and Instagram at Sister Brunch Podcast. We'll be right back. You said something earlier about having a dream, and I feel like in this industry, you can have multiple dreams.
Oh, yes.
And they can manifest. And so
100%.
I think it's really interesting that you have made it to, you've accomplished so many things and created so many platforms for us to take part in. And now you're kind of moving to another dream, which is really exciting. So
I kind of look at it as sliding doors.
Yeah.
Where I was on a writer track and I put it on pause.
Yeah.
And it pursued a different Gwyneth Paltrow track. And I got on
all of them.
Thank you. And I got on the other train. And I ended up in this different life, which I love. And I think I needed that path in order to show me so many things.
Yes.
So many things. I got a ton of opportunities to stretch myself as a human being.
Yeah.
And I've always, throughout my entire career, gone to writing classes or groundlings to perfect my ability to talk to writers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was really the goal, is to be able to keep current with the language and keep current with what the trends are and keep current, because comedy in particular changes so much and the business changes so much. And so it was a chance for me to really to also do things that I loved in my spare time. So I was always writing something, whether it was short stories or some sort of script. I was writing for myself. But I wasn't showing anyone. And I had this interesting moment where I had written a script. I had actually dreamt a script, an entire script from start to finish. This was in April 2017.
Okay.
I got up and I just transcribed it.
Oh,
just
wow.
Wrote it out.
Wow.
And I showed it to a friend. Again, something I'd never do. And he said, "This is great." He said, "It's not a movie though. It's a TV show." And so I started to work on this TV show idea, and I showed it to a couple of friends, not a lot of people. And I got some great notes, and so I decided that I was then going to apply to grad school and see if I got in.
Yes.
Now here's what's interesting.
So I see if I got in. Do we hear all of the accolades? And speaking of we don't have time for that, Kelly.
Okay, great. Okay.
Right,
Well,
but yes.
Okay.
No,
part
I hear
of it
you.
too
Yes,
was I'm working for HBO. They are very generous with their their
development
college. With they'll support you. So they were going to pay for 80% of my education. So I thought, well, let me just do this. I always wanted to do it, and I always wanted to be able to have a career if I wanted to at the college, teaching at the college level.
Yes.
And I didn't want the degree to stand in my way.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted an MFA. So I decided, well, now's a good time. My kids were going to school. Everyone was in college. And I had an empty house for the first time. So I applied. I thought I had applied to 2 colleges. I only applied to one. Emerson was my first choice. I got in, thankfully. There was no need for a second choice. And I loved it. Loved the process, loved the program, loved everything about it. And part of the program is they encourage you to apply to things. So it's film festivals or whatever it is, they encourage you to apply. And I thought, oh, okay. And my friend, again, Rose Catherine Pinkney, the person that I met early on in my career, said, "Why don't you apply to Sundance?" And I went,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I apply, and, the application takes a minute, so you apply. And then I didn't hear anything. And I thought, okay, well, no harm, no foul. No one's going to know. It'll be my own little fresh hell.
My own little fresh hell. But that's a very important point. You should apply. You should try. You should just try.
100%.
Why not? It's
free
to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also to point out that application is extremely long and detailed. And even if you are learning screenwriting and want to know what programs look for, and you understand what you have to know as a writer to apply to programs like that, it's also great just as a learning experience.
Absolutely.
But you already knew.
They were. I think I had
it. You already knew.
Having run my own, I know how to put it on the page.
Yeah.
I think so. Beginning of August, I get a call that I'm a finalist.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And then when I finally found out that I got in, I was terrified and excited at the same time.
Yeah.
But I realized that everyone was going to know my secret. Everyone was going to know.
Yeah.
But what a great way to know.
I know, right? I couldn't
by the
go
way,
out
I'm a
better.
writer and I'm going to Sundance.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought,
beautiful.
Now it's no longer going to be my little, and I'm constantly counseling people saying, it's okay to have your dream, and start to speak that. You know, if you want to be a writer, don't say I want to be a writer or an aspiring writer. You are a writer. And just own it. And I'm constantly telling people that, and I wasn't telling myself that because I thought I was believing the old thing of you have to be in a lane and you stay in your lane.
Right.
And what were people going to think if the person who's running the programs is going to actually be in a program? But getting in that program was life-changing.
Yeah.
The reason it's so great is A, it is validation. Yeah. B, when you get to Sundance and you are sitting and people are talking to you as a creator as opposed to an executive, I liken it to feeling as though I was in the right skin for the first time.
Yes.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
And they put you through the paces. The mentors and the advisors are just brilliant, the most brilliant people. I mean, I'm sitting up there with Graham Yost, who I literally, the last day he was there, I had to confess to them that I've probably seen Speed. If I've seen them 400 times, I might be exaggerating with 400 times, but literally every single time it's on, I own it. I watch it all the time. I'm just obsessed with that film. The way that they do their program is they have the creative advisors come in, and then once they leave, and once you've cried your eyes out at the final ceremony with them, you have a chance to be with the executives, and they bring in all these amazing executives, very, very high level executives from across the industry, and you have to pitch your show that you are just breaking down into pieces with them. You have to pitch your show as if you've got like a brain in your head at that point, and the feedback process begins, and it's an amazing conversation that you have on a whole another level. And at the very end, they talk to you about next steps and how to move you forward. So I'm still in that place right now.
Wait, was it weird for you to go to the execs that knew you as an exec?
Oh,
and they're like,
yes.
hi, I'm Kelly.
Exactly.
They're like, well, we know you because that must have been crazy.
It is, because when I was producing, sure, I'd go into people that I knew and I'd sit there and I'd do the wind up.
Yeah.
And then I'd hand it off to the writer, and the writer would pour their heart out and pitch, and then we'd follow up and see if we got a show or whatever.
Right.
But this is, you are really putting yourself out there in a lot of ways, because it's you. But I did learn some very valuable lessons, one of which being when I had to pitch the first time, I had to reconstitute the pilot that we just sort of decimated. And I pitched it to, I'm going to call it a cold room. So it was, I didn't get a lot of feedback. But it was the best thing that I could have gotten, because then I got to pitch it to a second room. And I was able to make adjustments. And knowing for myself that I could make those adjustments, find some new jokes, be a little bit more personal. Like I really took it to a much more personal level. And that seemed to really work.
Hi, Chris is waving at us. Hi, how are you? Oh, she's got a 5 on it. I think that means 5 minutes. Oh, no, we want to keep you forever. Okay. We're going to skip to our closing questions, and then we might add in some questions after that we could cut into previous. Okay, anyway, and Ms. Anya is going to take it away.
Oh, no, it's just like a lot of the people we hope to reach are people that aren't here or are trying to find a way in this industry and discover the different jobs and things. And so you came up through a very interesting route that a lot of our people that we've talked to haven't even touched. So what is some wisdom you would impart on those of us listening?
This business so changes so quickly that I'm saying to people now, nobody knows nothing. So go pitch yourself. You're a subject matter expert in something. Create something that you want and go pitch it to someone, because I guarantee you there's so many jobs out there. My job didn't exist at HBO. Right. Someone was doing it as a consultant, but when I went in and had a general meeting with Shirley Black, she was talking about all these things that they wanted to do in diversity, and I said, I want that job. And she said, well, there is no job. And I said, but I want that job. And she says, well, I'll introduce you to, again, connections. I'll introduce you to my boss. Ultimately, I did 11 interviews at that company. But 9 interviews later, there was a job. So that's number one. I like to say that you can find any job in entertainment that you can find in the real world. Doctors, lawyers, anything. Pick it.
True.
Insurance.
Yeah.
It all exists.
Within
inside,
the system.
If you're a shoemaker, we need shoes.
That's
so everything
happens.
Such a good point.
So you just come, ask the question, and we need you. We need people to show up, because we don't exist without New Life's blood. Yeah. Those are my tips.
Do you see why we love her so much? We love you,
awesome.
Kelly Edwards.
And
Thank
I love you too. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
We're so glad to have you on. Yeah. We're honored that you were here.
Thank you both.
It was wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Sister Brunch. I'm Anya Adams.
And I'm Fanshen Cox.
Join us next time.
Yeah.
I'm executive producer Christabel Insia-Bwadi. We really hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. Look out for it then, and be sure to subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our show producer is Brittany Turner. Visit our website. We're at sisterbrunch.com and join our community of creators. We're on Twitter at sisterbrunch, on Instagram at Sister Brunch Podcast, and we're on Facebook on facebook.com/Sister Brunch Podcast. We'll see you next time.